All of the hostages are back in Israel. I'm going to say this again. There are no more living hostages in the Gaza Strip in the hands of Hamas, Mati.
Mazal tov to us, yeah.
Yes, so it's time to go home. Let's close the shop.
Almost.
Or
Just
we're
one
just
more.
beginning.
Yeah, we're just beginning. And in the first 80 hours of this deal, Hamas already violates the ceasefire agreement, just proving that this whole thing is super, super fragile and that Israel must always maintain its security readiness on all fronts. This region is very, very volatile, and despite all the big celebrations that Donald Trump stated in Israel and also in Egypt with the Middle East peace plan, this place is still unstable.
We're not done yet. I think that's the big headline. The headline is, in this last week, we've reported, and more has happened than has happened in many months before that. We have 20 living hostages that were returned. We have a ceasefire agreement. The IDF withdrew from most of Gaza. Trump did a victory lap in the Middle East. An agreement was signed on a regional new pact in Sharm el-Sheikh. All that happened in 48 hours.
Crazy.
And that was yesterday. That was several days ago, sorry. And we're not even done with the week at this point. And all that to say is things have been moving blisteringly fast, unbelievably, but we're not done.
Yes, exactly.
We're very much not done. The hostage deal is not over yet. The biggest pieces in this deal are not over yet and not figured out yet. And we're going to break down over this podcast how much is being uncovered from what's inside that deal, the secret clauses, the unknown facts, the players that were there and were not there. Because the truth and the story here are not in what was in the headlines and what wasn't in the headlines yet. That's where the true story is.
So before we dive into details...
Oh, Tomer, I missed you. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to TBN Israel. Okay. This is how we share the truth of what's happening here on the ground with more people around the world. Just hit the subscribe button, share this video with somebody, give us a like, and leave a comment telling us what you think about this deal. Let's explain this deal first, okay? Yeah. Because people think, oh, there's peace in the Middle East. That's what all the headlines are stating, and we're far from that. This was the first phase of a deal between Israel and Hamas. Well, just the first one.
Let me explain
correct?
Something. I think, yeah, you are. I want to explain something that I explained to my kids. They asked, is there peace? I said, this is sort of a reverse peace process. Most deals are months or years in the making behind the scenes, and then there's one moment where everything was written out and figured out, and that moment is where you sign the deals. This was the opposite.
Let's agree on one clause.
Nothing was agreed on.
Yeah.
Nothing was agreed on except for the exchange of hostages and part, not even fully, the withdrawal of the IDF forces. Not even the full withdrawal of the IDF forces.
Just 50%.
But even that wasn't fully
We're holding 50%.
We're holding, no, even then, the IDF lines of retreat were not defined in the first phase of the agreement because we're in different, anyway. So usually everything's figured out, then you go and sign and you have that big moment. Here was reverse.
Let's sign on this
sign
date.
now or else. And then they said, we're going to figure out everything else in motion. And what we're going to see now is everything being figured out in motion. That's where we are.
Yeah, but in general, the first phase is to receive all the hostages from Gaza to Israel in exchange for Palestinian convicted terrorists back to the Gaza Strip or Judea and Samaria, and a partial withdrawal from key areas, including Gaza City, of the IDF troops, and Hamas regains control while humanitarian aid resumes using the old mechanisms of the United Nations, meaning Hamas gets all the aid and the Palestinian people might get some, might need to buy it at high prices.
So about a week and a half ago, there was the big UN General Assembly, and you had everyone talking about recognizing a Palestinian state unilaterally. All that is irrelevant at
Nobody's
this point.
talking about that anymore.
Because it was all a show. It had no meaning whatsoever. Remember, a week and a half ago, we were talking about the flotilla, the Greta Thunberg flotilla. No one's thinking about these clowns at this point, and that's a compliment to who they are.
No, you know what shocks me? But we're going to get that because nobody, all these free Palestine people, all these people that said free Gaza, free
and no one of them is celebrating.
Nobody is saying anything. There's a ceasefire. You've been fighting for this moment for
years.
So long, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's celebrating. And more than that, the Palestinian people are now being executed by Hamas terrorists in the streets of Gaza. Nobody's calling.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting excited about this.
Yeah, one might even say
Yeah.
They don't actually care about the Palestinians.
Shocking.
We might be able to say that because all their actions and everything they've ever done indicate exactly that. But back to your point, or the question of what is actually happening right now. And there was, so at the end of the UN General Assembly, you have President Trump presents the 21-point plan. This is about a week and a half ago. Him and Netanyahu meet on Monday. Then they present this plan in partial to the public. It has a lot of clauses in it, but the first big thing is stop fighting in the Gaza Strip and return the hostages, both dead, I shouldn't say dead, the murdered hostages and the living hostages.
Exactly.
That's the first phase of it. And the IDF immediately that night, so this happens within 24 hours, withdraws out of Gaza City and out of the biggest city centers, and we kick into what ends up being Monday of this week, Trump arriving in Israel and the hostages, the living hostages being released, all 20 of them.
Yeah.
That's phase number one.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then everything that comes after that, that's where all the details lie. They're super complicated and very unclear and have been intentionally left vague because otherwise no one would have been able to sign them. And now we need to figure them out. The big pieces here are really what happens in Gaza in the day after. That's a big thing.
The day after what?
Hamas.
After Hamas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or the ceasefire, or both. So the whole proposition here is that we move forward without Hamas being at the helm in the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
But what's been happening is it's been impossible up till now to remove them. The whole purpose behind Trump bringing this global coalition of all these countries is because they wanted a mechanism that actually would be able to remove Hamas. And that's a complicated part that we're about to get to.
Yeah. First of all, the goal of this ceasefire and one of the objectives is to disarm the Gaza Strip and to disarm Hamas, a terrorist organization, prevent it from controlling and ruling the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Yes.
This is not what's happening now. At the moment, Hamas is controlling the people in the Gaza Strip with weapons, and you can see it. All of them came out of their tunnels after the ceasefire was signed, and the comments that we are getting from Netanyahu and Trump are that Hamas will be disarmed. Trump just stated, we will disarm Hamas quickly and perhaps violently. I'm not playing games. This is a statement from Donald Trump. And then Prime Minister Netanyahu also said Hamas must give up its weapons. I hope we can expand this peace. And we'll see what happens with this situation because they have no incentive of giving up their weapons.
I mean, it's the same incentive that brought them to sign the ceasefire deal.
You know what I'm actually very scared of that's going to happen is that we've already seen Hamas rebranding itself, kind of like El Julani in Syria. So Hamas militants are now less wearing the green symbols of Hamas, less wearing the official uniform of this terrorist organization, and are wearing civilian clothes with weapons as they are terrorizing the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
So what can be an option that will be acceptable to the world is to have Hamas rebranded as the Free Liberation Army of Palestine or something like that, and then receive international legitimacy. I mean, what's the difference?
In the details. I think that's the complicated thing here, which is Hamas is an organization that has an ideology and history. And really the measuring or the measure of whether or not Hamas is in control is the identity or the details of the ideology behind the government in Gaza. That's really what it is. By the way, these kind of people, they know how to lie and they will lie, but they will not abandon their ideology just for the sake of comfort.
But
what you can expect to see is some of their leadership seek asylum outside of the Gaza Strip, which I'm expecting to happen. Some of these sort of chief terrorists, battalion commanders, regiment commanders, them removing themselves from the Gaza Strip, knowing full well that they're sort of the on the poster.
Yeah, because they're well-known individuals.
Exactly. And then the people on the ground, no one expected to remove everyone who was ever affiliated with Hamas. You'd be left with about 15% of the Gaza population. That's not the plan.
Already inside the Gaza Strip, there are mechanisms to give amnesty to members of Hamas that are not actual terrorists that were involved in the fighting, and some that even are carrying weapons, but as long as they give up their weapons and kind of become good again.
Yeah, so that in general, that's the plan. Sorry, Tomo, you had a question?
no, for me to understand how the moment that you have a ceasefire, the first thing you do is the army of the people. You're going out and execute people on the street.
No, that's not what you're supposed to do, Tomo.
What?
That's what Hamas did.
No, that's what they're doing. That's not what you're supposed to do.
How it's even possible to talk about something with people that this is the action as a leadership in a place.
Can I pause you for a
Sorry.
second? Because Yair asked this question in a different way. What is to pressure Hamas? And people need to understand this at home. Hamas didn't enter this agreement because they want a ceasefire. They didn't enter the agreement because they care about the IDF maneuvering through the Gaza Strip. They're not interested in that. They also didn't enter into the ceasefire agreement because they were tired or overwhelmed. They don't care. They're an organization that sanctifies death. They could care less about their 16-year-old and 17-year-old fighters dying. That's not why they stopped. They stopped because the Turkish and the Qatari governments put so much pressure on their international leadership that they understood they wouldn't exist outside of the Gaza Strip if they didn't sign the ceasefire agreement. I'll explain that again. Hamas is not a grassroots movement in the sense that the people of Gaza support it and fund it. Hamas is an international arm of global jihad. It is paid for by the Qataris. It's paid for by other people around the world and supported in money, funds, and ideology by multiple different entities. And because of that, if that international arm or the feeding mechanism is cut off from Hamas, they cease to exist in the Gaza Strip because they don't have someone to send in the weapons through Philadelphia corridor. They don't have someone that will host them in hotels outside of the Gaza Strip. And in essence, the Turks came into the last moment of the negotiation and said to the Hamas in a very clear way and public way, if you don't sign this now, without any comments or questions or asterisks in the conversation, you will not be safe anywhere in the world.
Yeah, not in Qatar, not in Turkey, and then the only place left for them is basically Iran,
Exactly.
which already
we've shown
Israel
isn't safe,
proved
actually.
that isn't safe for Hamas leadership.
Exactly.
With the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh.
And I think that point's important to understand is this isn't about them entering into the ceasefire agreement because they said we want to stop the war. They entered into the ceasefire agreement because if they didn't, they would cease to exist as an organization, and the only hope they had was to comply. That's why they entered in. So, therefore, you ask a perfect question, Tomel. That's why they're violating the ceasefire agreement. They never wanted it. They're doing it solely for the purpose of self-preservation. That's why they're doing it. And now to Tomel's question, we woke up a couple days ago to images coming out of the Gaza Strip of Hamas once more, this isn't the first time, throwing cinder blocks at the legs of their political opponents and breaking them.
Also,
beating people to
shooting at the legs of
Yes.
their opponent and at their backs.
Yes. Assassinating people in the streets because they imagined they had an affiliation to Israel, because they somehow or another were cooperative of the IDF, because they're part of a faction that fights against Hamas or doesn't want Hamas to take over an area again, or a clan that opposed Hamas. We don't know the exact numbers.
Many other things that
or
didn't
many other reasons.
align with Hamas's goals.
Anyway, dozens of people have been killed already. Dozens of people have been killed, murdered in the streets.
Okay, so the release of the hostages, the live hostages, was smooth and everybody came back. But there is another part of the deal that they didn't work with or didn't give back, the disease.
The murdered hostages.
Yeah, basically hostages that were murdered in the Gaza Strip while they were in captivity. And that's why everybody is saying 48 hostages. Well, in practice, only 20 came back 2 days ago or 3 in the beginning of the week when we were celebrating the return of the hostages. But there are 28 more hostages that only the remains need to come back to Israel for the families to have a closure and for them to have a burial and a grave in Israel. It's very important in the Jewish society for the body to be in Israel, to have a grave, for the families to mourn their loved ones. And this is a last card that Hamas is still holding. And it's also, to be honest, it's very hard to find all these bodies because some of them are underneath rubbles in the Gaza Strip. So Israel created a mechanism together with the mediators that will be in charge of locating these remains even before the reconstruction process of the Gaza Strip, so that no buildings will be built on top of remains of Israelis in the Gaza Strip, because it's very important and it's a key issue in this agreement. And Witkoff is now also pressuring Hamas to bring the hostages, which looks like it's helping because they're giving up more remains because of this international pressure against them. But we'll see, and hopefully they will not hold these remains as their last cards in this negotiation to continue their psychological warfare against Israel, like they have been doing so far.
Can we speak honestly for a second? one, we're recording this a bit before the podcast airs. So we don't know the exact number that's going to be released by the end of the week. We can pretty much guarantee that it's not going to be all of them. And I want to be honest here. Hamas said repeatedly throughout the entire process that they don't have all the deceased hostages.
But
They
Do
said
you believe them?
the
I
IDF and Israeli informer said, we have all the location and we can send
not
you them."
all.
Most of them.
Not all. That's the thing. Listen, in January of 2024, Yair Lotan, who was then the Israeli representative responsible for coordinating the return and tallying where everyone was in the Gaza Strip, publicly said, by permission of the Israeli government, that we already lost touch with some of the deceased hostages. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was a year and 9 months ago.
But with that, to sending a Hamas terrorist dead body back to Israel as one of our hostages, that's ridiculous.
Is
Or
it?
that's a terror
No, but
organization.
let's play devil's advocate here for a second. Do you think Hamas has forensic labs that are operational right now?
No.
No, clearly they don't. They didn't probably before the war started. It's not like they have DNA labs where they can run sequencing.
Yeah,
We know on
in general, their health ministry wasn't good in counting at all.
no, but that sometimes
amounts of
but that's
people.
intentional. That's the
Yeah,
point.
10 fingers.
But I'd say on the unintentional side, for instance, with the Bivas family, the beautiful redheaded
But
mother.
that was
and,
intentional.
Wait, but that was intentional, but because they didn't want people to know what was done to the people before they were killed.
Yes.
And what they did is they burnt the bodies after torturing them half to death.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for being graphic here. And then they hid the bodies because they didn't want the IDF to ever find out what happened because they knew how it would look to the public. So imagine it's been 2 years now. We already know that they've had trouble locating all of the deceased people. I pray and I hope that we get everyone back. Hamas has been very, very, very public in saying, we're really sorry, we already are telling you we just don't have all of them. Now, what does all mean? They're claiming that they've lost 7 to 9 of the deceased hostages. Israel said, and this is where you get into conspiracies, the Israeli intelligence told Hamas, no, there are 2 that are not on your list where we have the location of them. And the question is, did Hamas know of that or not know?
Yeah.
Because they're not guaranteed to have known that information. We might have had that information from having tens of thousands of soldiers on the ground for almost 2 years in Gaza and interrogating people. So we're in a very tricky situation where Hamas would almost be hell-bent to give back everything. It would be very hard for them to do that. And even if they wanted to, then there's a question of would they even if they had the ability to.
Exactly. So Mati, so what's up with the IDF now? The IDF forces are less, more? Are there more reserves in Israel? Are they located in key positions just to defend there? Or are they doing also some operational maneuvers? Are you going to go back to the reserves coming up? Or
Well, I am planned right now
to Judea and Samaria?
to Judea and Samaria, but we're already hearing rumors that everything's changing as far as the continuation of this year. Again, the army it's hard to explain this. We have a substantial percentage of our population in reserves, and when a ceasefire agreement is signed, the army there's a whole division in the army who's not military unit. There's a department in the army that's responsible for planning manpower. And they look at all this, Amatz, government they look at all of this and say, look, here's our Gantt chart for the year, and it's in the tens and hundreds of thousands of soldiers every cycle. And then they look at that and they say, we don't know what's coming down the pipeline. So the last word I heard, and what I'm saying is not classified in any way, is the army's figuring out what's happening in the coming months.
I see.
Because we don't know what's coming in the next coming months. We've withdrawn many of the forces from the Gaza Strip. They haven't been released. They've been sent home in part, but they're not released.
I see.
You know what I mean? Because we might be going back into Gaza if this falls apart.
Yeah, exactly. So basically right now in Israel, the IDF and the reserve soldiers are on high alert. We still have soldiers defending inside the Gaza Strip. They are positioned in strategic locations around this yellow line that was drawn for this first phase of the agreement. But they are sitting there in defensive positions, and they need basically the best gear that they can get in order to protect them, from bulletproof vests to backpacks to, any kind of equipment, sleeping bags, uniform. And this is something that, first of all, Israel has, but throughout this war, I think this was really amazing for me personally, and also for you. We've received so much help as IDF soldiers from organizations around the world. And one of these organizations is called the Israel Magen Fund. And we're partnering with this organization because they're doing amazing work. They are gathering support for critical tactical gear, including ceramic vests that are protecting the soldiers from bullets, from like very strong, big bullets, from tactical helmets that are a lot more comfortable than what I started the war with. If you can remember my
1970.
Calimero, second.
No, people don't know who Calimero is.
It's like
eggshell helmet.
Eggshell helmet, yeah, from World War II.
Calimero is a cartoon character from our childhood.
Exactly.
There was a chick that wore an eggshell on his head.
So yes, I remember these gear and these tactical equipment that I received as a donation really changed my ability to fight in the Gaza Strip, and kept me more secure, more confident throughout this mission that I had to carry out there. And this organization, the Israel Magen Fund, are doing exactly that. We don't know what are the challenges of the IDF in the next few months, few years, but history told us that we need to have a strong military in order to remain alive in this land, in the land of Israel.
Yeah.
So one way that you can help Israel and the IDF now, and now is the time when the war is not fighting, it's the time to plan, to prepare, to gather the gear, and to prepare for the next war. This is what armies do. So you can go to israelmagenfund.org/give. Again, that's israelmagenfund.org/give. Support the men and women of the IDF that are defending us.
Can I maybe ask a question that I bet someone at home is asking you?
Yeah.
Someone might be hearing you and saying, didn't Israel already catch up on ordering all the gear they need for this war? It's been 2 years at this point. And maybe they don't understand how big the need is. Yeah. Because they look at this, well, it's the army. So, okay, I'll give myself as an example. I serve in a military unit. We've now already received almost all the gear we need from the army. Definitely 2 years into the war. But in the communities that I serve in Judea and Samaria, there are other first responders or quick response units. They need more gear. I too serve in a quick response unit in my civilian life, and we too need gear. And every one of these units has weapons and equipment and radio communication. The list doesn't end. I mean, it just doesn't end when you're responding to this level of threat, and definitely the potential threat. I mean, the Army's been opening up entire new divisions of units in different areas of the country. You really need a lot of gear. That's the answer. The Army spent a fortune on buying gear, but it's a bottomless pit when you're fighting against 8 fronts or 7 fronts plus the media.
And also look about the quality of the gear. So yes, the Army can provide you a certain level of gear, but you want the top level gear to protect your men and women who are defending this country. And again, israelmagenfund.org/give is a great organization to support us. Let's move on to the statements that we heard about a peace agreement in the Middle East. Are we going to see a regional agreement like Abraham Accords 2.0? And I think a big part of that is Saudi Arabia and other rich Arab nations were not participating in this Sharm el-Sheikh meeting of Donald Trump.
Tomo pointed this out before we started recording the podcast, that there were people missing from that meeting. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu would be high on that list of people that were not invited, and then
Palestinian President Masoud Abbas.
Then on the red phone in the car in the Beast from the airport, Trump gets on the phone with President Sisi and says, Sisi, are you not going to invite Netanyahu? He's right here next to me. He wants to come to the party too.
Would you want to invite him?
And he says, I didn't think he wanted to come. And says, Tell him, Netanyahu. He puts the phone, and Netanyahu says, okay, I'll come. I don't think it was an iPhone, but it's close enough to...
That's how they did it, for sure.
But really, to your point, there are several key figures that were missing from that meeting. And top of that list were the Saudis. And Trump talks extensively over the last week about who's going to finance this whole thing. Because he likes talking about, I'm the one who does the deals, I make the deals, all I do is make deals.
But I'm not paying.
Yeah,
but I'm not paying for it.
And there's countries, they have a lot of money, so much money, they're going to pay.
They're going to pay. They have a lot of money.
Well, some of those
need money to do stuff.
Well, some of those countries didn't show up to Sharm el-Sheikh.
They don't want to pay.
Maybe they don't want to pay. And I don't say this jokingly. Clearly, there's a whole lot of regional tension that's taking place here. And we look at this as, the Muslim countries, the Arab countries. No, every country has its own interest. And Trump and his administration have been unbelievably skillfully pulling the strings leading up to that moment. And in some cases, it wasn't pulling a string, it was yanking a chain. It was telling people, now we're doing this or else. And in other cases, it was stroking the ego. In other cases, it was pulling a military base on their soil with a defense pact with the Qataris, for instance.
Also the Turks.
Yeah, and the Turks
Why
was
did
giving
Turkey join this agreement the last minute after supporting Hamas throughout these 2 years of war?
Exactly.
Because they want a big arms deal with the United
Well, they
States
got
of
it.
America.
F-35s, and there was a missile package in it.
Yeah, I think a defensive missile package.
What was it? Not javelins.
No.
Tomer, did they get any kind of good missiles?
Anyway, it was some.
No, but more than that, all the Arab armies gonna buy now a lot of equipment from the U.S. It's starting with that Turkey got her F-35s and the Assisi getting more equipped to his army. It's all about armies now. Everybody wants the best defense system, the best.
Well, basically, I think that what Israel proved throughout this war is that the Western American defensive and offensive capabilities are no match for the Chinese, Russian, North Korean capabilities. And then all the Arab nations want to buy this stuff from the Americans. So that is like a huge pressure lever to agree to multiple things in this region.
I think it's more than that. Yeah, I think a lot of these countries were on the fence, waiting to see how this regional conflict would sort of.
And now they align with the winners, basically.
Yeah, there was a question of like, do we go all in on like the U.S. interest and the Israeli interest, or do we sort of play both sides because we're not sure where things are going? And between Putin being unable to, again, you think about like how these strings of thought go. A country such as Turkey looks at what's been going on between Ukraine and the Russians, and they say, evidently, there's no way the Russians are going to be able to win this the way they expect to. So they're not the horse we're going to gamble on in this game.
Same with Iran.
Yeah, same with the Iranians. The Iranians had this question mark over their, sort of their brand. Are they going to be able to come out victorious or semi-victorious? Are they be able to continue disrupting? And you look at their sort of their backers, the Chinese, the Russians to a lesser degree, maybe other countries. And countries were wondering, do we align with them or do we go all in with the Americans? And in this round, especially I think after Midnight Hammer, such a lovely name.
The best name. We should go into movies, make a lot of money, guys. You, the IDF chief of staff, you will be a great TV star. That was a speech.
We all sat at home.
That was a funny speech. Yeah, it was a great speech.
It was like visiting Grandpa at the old home, where he just goes on repeat telling stories from the past.
I feel that he kept this stand-up comedy show through the peace meeting and really showed Europe that they are not relevant anymore in the story. And the whole thing felt like a huge stage of showing where the powers lie.
Let me ask a different question. Tomo, maybe that's the entire purpose of these things.
I believe so.
Because the deal that was signed there is as vague as it's as vague as it could possibly be. No one was expecting the details to be worked out before that or during that summit.
That's why the
summit was a photo op.
I think this is the style of Donald Trump. He first of all gives the titles and then works.
Then they write the story.
And then they write the story. So he's like, first of all, the end game. War is over. Hostages back. Now let's talk about how. It's like It's like
our YouTube team. First they think of the thumbnail and title. Then they think about what the content actually says.
Right, Tomer?
Tomer's smiling.
Don't lie.
Tomer's smiling in the corner. Anyway, but to our point, what this was, the Sharm el-Sheikh summit, it's a photo op. And not in a bad way. I'm not saying that in a negative sense. It's a photo op in the sense that the point of this is to send a message to the world. And the message is, we won and they lost. We're strong, they're weak. And everything, all messaging that comes out of that visit to the Middle East is underneath that umbrella of content. And he makes a point to what you're saying, Toma. He looks at some friends and says, you guy, Sisi, he's a strong leader. He's a good leader. He's one of the good guys. And then he looks at Keith Stormer. How do you pronounce it in English?
Yeah.
Starmer.
Yeah.
Starmer.
Of the UK.
The Prime Minister of the UK, and he pretends not to recognize
He
him.
was looking like a huge baby that got lost he tried to get close and he going back and really Trump, also with Macron, Trump make fun out of them, really showing, for my opinion, the people that those are just puppets and they are not leaders.
Yeah.
In some way, power plays here. And the way of showing what happened here in Israel when Trump came and and talked in the Knesset. For a brief moment, I felt that all our politicians were united, that most of our, inside problems was down for a second. Everybody were happy and sad in the same time and listening to...
Except for member of Knesset Kasif.
Yeah,
He was quite unhappy.
two members, they weren't so happy.
But they were efficient to take him out.
They were thrown out of the Knesset for disrupting his speech.
Prop like that. Very efficient, guys. But okay, I heard a report. I don't know if it's confirmed or not, Tomer. Maybe you can help me out. That immediately after the ceasefire took effect and the IDF withdrew from the Gaza Strip, Palestinians reached out to their IDF officer, people that were in charge and in communication with them, calling on the IDF to come back because they're afraid of Hamas. Is that true?
Yeah. So we do see a lot of the Gazan or Palestinian population over there trying to get back to the humanitarian places that the IDF hold in the south, next to Rafah. And the reason is that the IDF took care of everything. If it's with the GHF that went out. So now they need to go back beside to getting free aid, free everything and be really take care of, not afraid from terrorists. They need to go fight over the trucks that getting in and get somehow food through the distribution centers of the UN back.
So currently at the 50% that the IDF still controls in the Gaza Strip, you have also Palestinians there. They just have the option to go back to their cities if they want, but they can still stay in the humanitarian areas that are under the control of the IDF.
Whatever we still hold.
Yeah.
We didn't left much. It's a lot of work to hold civilians as an army, or to help civilians as an army. And with that, the U.S. GHF went out, so we don't have the U.S. organization of giving aid to the people.
Well, the whole point here is for the original organizations to come back into action. And I think that's really the
Gaza Soup Kitchen and all these organizations.
Yeah, it's the World Food Kitchen.
Millions of dollars.
I like your name though. Yeah. Someone should start an organization on that with that name. It's the World. What is it called? The World Food Bank, the World Kitchen. There's a bunch of these organizations, and then the different UN agencies. Part of the question here is the U.S. wanted to work with as many parties as possible, and especially the effective ones. And there was no point in alienating all these different organizations. And they said, you're welcome to come back in, as long as we're removing Hamas, where that's a key point of this entire discussion. And as long as that lives and exists, everyone's happy with the situation. But I think really now is the testing time. Now is the time where we need to figure out if this is going to work or not. If the U.S. and other countries leave things at the Sharm el-Sheikh summit, it's going to be a dead document in a week. Hamas is going to take over the Gaza Strip again, and in 2 weeks, IDF starts taking positions again deeper into the Gaza Strip, knowing full well that we need to push Hamas back. Hamas, in a matter of days, recruited over 8,000 fighters. Many of them are teenagers, by the way, to take positions, take over land, etc. Started collecting taxes again. We need this finished the right way, and the right way is going from the headlines to the thorough work, to gathering international coalition, to building treaties, to reforming the Palestinian Authority, to bringing in the 15 bureaucrat government that's supposed to rule the Gaza Strip in the interim period, to bring them in, to govern civilian life, to disarm Hamas. There's a lot of homework to be done here, a lot. Each one of the things I mentioned, by the way, and I'm not even done with the list, is a substantial project of its own. And if you add to that the fact you need to stabilize the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, make sure that the Egyptian government doesn't collapse, that the Jordanians are safe, keep everyone happy at the same time, the Qataris, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Turks, there's a lot that needs to be done in coming months.
Basically, to all the people that are wondering what are we going to talk about,
we have
enough information and news to report from Israel and the Middle East to keep going for a lifetime or multiple lifetimes.
Yeah, we're not done anytime soon.
So we're not going anywhere. Hopefully, we can still incorporate more cultural, and as the peace agreements come in, and I believe that they would, we might be doing some shows in Lebanon and other places.
I'm looking forward to it.
That would be cool.
I don't know how soon that's happening, but I'd be looking forward to it. And just to say here, we're not done. The IDF is not done. The state of Israel is done. And President Trump's effort to really bring regional change in this part of the world is far from done. It was a very positive start, a really powerful way to sort of kick into action this entire process, but it's not over yet. It's not over till the fat lady sings, which is the expression that's probably no longer acceptable, but it has its roots.
There's no more walk.
The fat Hamas terrorist that stole all the food sings.
Oh, they don't let women sing at all. Heaven forbid, they cover them up. But anyway, to be more practical, there's a lot of work to be done in the Gaza Strip. And if that happens, and all, I don't like using the term stars align, and God's plan takes action the way it should, we're looking at a reformed Middle East. And just to think about this, I'll start close. It means the Palestinian Authority goes through reforms. It means Gaza gets rebuilt, rehabilitated, gets a new government. Then you go farther. It means Syria gets rehabilitated and stabilized. It means the Lebanese government gets the aid that it needs to restabilize. Then Egypt, then Jordan. And the cycle goes on and on and on to really bring forth a new kind of future and peace for this region, which is so needed and so dramatically in need right now. It's going to be amazing when it happens. Yeah. And not to sound repetitive, this is the history in the making. We have not seen in our lifetime, I can think of maybe one or two other events that would be of such magnitude and reshaping the world that we're living in. Truly, the fall of Iraq would probably be on the top of that list of the Saddam Hussein government that really started into action, a whole cascading effect of destruction, and the Arab Spring would probably be on the top of the list. This is very close to that. Very dramatic in reshaping, very dramatic in rebuilding, very substantial in possibly bringing forth a future that is not more cycles of death and destruction and violence for the people of this Middle East.
And what we've learned in this past 2 years is that peace is made with the strong side.
Absolutely.
So you have to remain strong. The IDF needs to maintain its qualitative capabilities, meaning that we must keep and have the best weapons in the world, the best and the most advanced ones, so that no terrorist organization or any kind of unstable nation can threaten us. So this is something that the IDF will need to maintain. We'll need to keep our strategic locations inside Syria, inside Lebanon, and inside the Gaza Strip to make sure that an October 7 does not happen again.
Yeah.
And that we have actually peace and cooperation with our neighbors. And it looks like we're going to need to help them out to achieve the stability in their country. I don't see Lebanon succeeding in dismantling Hezbollah on their own.
No, and they're
especially not now when Iran is trying to revive this terrorist organization, their proxy.
They don't claim to be able to. They want help. They've asked for it. The Syrian government, Ashar's government, they've asked for help too, publicly. They want stabilization with Israel because they don't want to be living a war of violence.
But Ashara went on CNN and started to talk bad about Israel.
Really bad.
He said, "Oh, the Israelis attacked me. I was in the shower in my castle and they bombed me. I had to run and stuff like that."
Completely innocent.
So it's this is an Al Qaeda leader, and he started to badmouth Israel. It's not nice.
Anything else, Tomo, that we've missed?
No, that's the end.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mati.
So
thank you, Yair. Thank you, Tomer.
Thank you, Tomer.
Thank you to our team downstairs.
Thank you to everybody who's joined us for TBN Israel, the podcast. Hopefully, we'll have more amazing good news podcasts like this one. God is good. He's faithful. He's proven to everybody that he performs huge miracles in modern days, and he's just getting started. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.